2017 has really been a terrific year for video games in many ways. But for the business of video games and all that stuff that happens around it, it's been an arsehole of a year. 2018 will be different though, at least according to the CEO of one major publisher.
2018 is going to be the year where gamers take the power back. That is a direct quote from the Paradox CEO Fredrik Wester, who was speaking at a games industry panel at the Slush conference recently. I don't know what the Slush conference is, but
sounds tasty.
It's not that important, is it?
Sounds tasty.
I like the mystery of it. Like, what is the Slush? It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter where he said it. All that matters is what he said. Paradox is, of course, the mainly PC-focused publisher behind games like Crusader Kings, Cities Skylines, Hearts of Iron, Mountain Blade, and Pillars of Eternity. Wester predicted that there will be a bounce back from the heavy-handed monetization and arguably even exploitative tactics of the AAA games industry we've seen in a big way in 2017. Quote, "We're seeing that with the loot box debacle that EA had with Star Wars Battlefront 2. I think we're seeing that in numerous different places. Battlefront 2, while the biggest, is of course not the only AAA controversy this year. Who can forget Middle-earth Shadow of War, Destiny 2, Forza 7, Need for Speed Payback, and many more besides. Most of those controversies revolved around microtransactions and the way games now angle for recurrent revenue streams with loot boxes filled with random shite after you've already spent $60 on the base game and maybe even another $40 on a season pass. But it is unquestionably Star Wars Battlefront 2 that burst the dam this year, with EA pulling major U-turns like freezing microtransactions entirely, while legislators and government bodies in several countries weighed in with statements, investigations, and even plans for new laws.
Wester predicts consumer intolerance will continue next year, with new laws like the General Data Protection Regulation in Europe giving control back to citizens and residents over their personal data being a good thing for the games industry. Referring to that new GDPR regulation, he said, quote, "All of a sudden, we can't just collect data. We can't just treat people the way that we want to do in business. We have to actually care about the gamers." Wester said that full transparency is needed in the industry and that business models for games need to be agreed with the gamer, rather than shoving it in the face.
So that was his prediction for what might be good in 2018, and the bad? Well, he says VR. Quote, "Give VR 5 years and it might hit, but in 2018, it's gonna be stone cold." So we'll get onto that VR thing in a minute, but my favourite line there is the thing about business models, that you've got to agree that with the gamers rather than just shoving stuff on them and forcing things on them. And he's saying there's going to be a lot more communicative in the future, not going to be like a farming exercise where the gamers are there just to kind of, just be harvested, their data and the way that they behave and the way that they spend. It's got to be more of a kind of back and forth rather than just a kind of take relationship. I think that what's interesting as well is that he's a guy in the industry, a CEO of a major publisher, saying that this is good for the industry. So these comments and who is saying them is very interesting.
With him saying that 2018 is going to be different and that 2017 was the start of something. It seems like the Battlefront 2 loot box fiasco, as we're terming it here at PGD offices, was the catalyst for so many things, and this is the latest in the line of things that you can attribute to this being the catalyst of, because they're talking about changes now. They're talking about consumers having to respect consumers. Imagine that, because they will backlash and they will kick you in the arse, like we did over the loot box thing and Battlefront 2. I don't think it's a new thing. I think it's a culmination. I think it started way before the Battlefront 2 thing, but Battlefront 2 was the biggest hit and the hardest hit and the most media coverage that anything like this has ever got, and it opened the business people's eyes. You can't get away with this shit anymore, and people like this talking about it in these types of publications is just going to shed a lot more light on it, and hopefully things will be better next year, not for the businesses, because that's not who we care about, for the consumers.
Comes down to overall health as well. He's obviously saying that it's that one-way traffic thing that is the problem. It's that mentality from the business side, and as he says, as his words are, as we want to do in business. We can't just treat gamers and the consumers in general as kind of the data and statistics as they would like to do, because they literally have to be more collaborative, at least in Europe now, because of the new regulation that's coming in. And he says that's just going to be part of a wider thing throughout the year that's going to be more healthy for the industry as a whole. It's nice to hear some optimism about the way that gaming is going, although the thing with VR is interesting as well. He's obviously a bit skeptical about VR, and he seems to say that one of his lines was that next year is going to be like waking up from a hangover after a huge party in 2017. So 2017 has been massive for VR. He's saying next year's That's his hot prediction, that it's not going to be so good. I don't know about that, but he is at least saying that in 5 years it probably will be decent. So I don't know. It's interesting comments all around from this guy. I'm just happy that he has said this stuff at the Slush conference.
I mean, I'm not sure I agree with him on the VR thing. I think Sony are the spearhead company now with this VR. They're pushing this. They've sold 2 million units of the PSVR now, which is loads. And so obviously developers and games makers are getting on board with this, and so they're making more games. And if there's more games, more people will buy the VR unit, and then that whole cycle will get bigger and bigger. And like more people playing VR, more games are being made. You know, that's just how it works. I mean, I for one believe in VR. I mean, I've had awesome experiences in VR, and I hope that it does take off and do well and thrive in the future.
There you go. Interesting to hear words like that from the CEO of a major publisher about the way that gamers are going to be in control of more stuff in the next year. Very interesting. Let us know what you think down in the comments. Remember to like the video if you enjoyed it, and please do subscribe if you want to see more stuff like this every single day. You can check out that video right there, right now if you want, and the link to Patreon if you want to support the channel. See you next time.